Okay, we're going to make a pizza and see how long it takes. It is now 17 minutes to 6. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to light the oven. And set the temperature at about 220. Take out the tray. You can take it out later, it's just a bit hot though. So we've got our tray there, which as you can see I do a lot of baking on. And in fact the preparation for that I might as well do now, which is just to put a bit of flour on it. This isn't necessary for baking the pizza, but it is necessary for preparing the base, as you will see. Okay, that's that part done. This flour that I'm using is type 55, cheap one. It's about 45p a bag, 45 cents a bag. And we use about, this is slightly coarser than the other flour. It's farine de blé. It's more for making, it's smoother pastries and things. So, added to the mix, I've got here about a teaspoon of sodium bicarbonate, which is the cheap one that you can use for cleaning and cooking. And I've got about half a teaspoon of salt there, sea salt. I don't use table salt, I use sea salt. This is the flour. As I say, about 200 grams I think. It's about a fifth of a packet, but you'll need to measure it the first few times. And this is dill that I've sprinkled on here. I like to add the herbs to the base mix because that way they mix more thoroughly. If you shake herbs onto the pizza, obviously there's a risk that you're going to dollop a huge amount onto one bit of it. Same with salt. So I put salt on the base. The base needs salt anyway. I don't put pepper in this, probably can. It's really quite nice actually. I think I might try it today. I'm going to put some pepper in it as well. One of the reasons for that pepper idea is that it looks nice, and the same with the herbs. I like the herbs in there because once it's all mixed together, shake it, get it all to the bottom. It just looks good with all the herbs interspersed into the base. Looks nice. But as I say, you get that even coverage that way. Shake it. So you just shake it like that to get it into the, to get it falling to the middle of the bowl. This is like a flat tray. It's a decorative tray, but it's very useful for baking because of its shape. And I pour. This is really off the boil water. It should just be hot or warm really. But we're not using yeast. We're using bicarbonate, and so therefore the temperature of the water is not really that crucial. I think with yeast. Anyway, this is unleavened bread really. We're just using the bicarbonate to give it a little bit of a lift, otherwise it would just be, you know, solid. In fact, I think I've used a bit too much flour here. I've probably used 250 grams. I just do it by eye myself. I don't generally weigh it out, which is probably silly of me. But I weighed it for the first time the other day and I found that really 200 grams is about what I use. That will be enough now. I'm just going to put the camera down for a moment. So my 2-spoon method, I don't want it on my fingers yet. So I like to mix with 2 spoons. And then the 2 spoons you can unstick the dough from each other with, without making a huge mess. So the dough is quite sticky now. using the dough to pull all the bits of flour off the side of the... It's too sticky, we need a bit more. It's better for the dough to be too sticky than to be too dry. If it's too dry, you're buggered. What we're looking for is an elastic kind of dough that is slightly sticky. It needs to be slightly sticky. If it's problems that it's sticking to your hands and you have to keep reflouring it, then it's just right. If it's not sticking to your hands, then it's too dry for pizza. It's starting to look good. One more. And now, now we can start using fingers. I don't know how much of that you were actually able to see. So it's just trying to stick to my hand, which is just about how you want it to be. Just sticky enough that you can pick up that flour off the side of the bowl there. See, it's just sticking to my fingers a little bit. Oops, I'm not pointing the camera the right way, am I? But it's just about unstickable with touching onto the flour. You can make it less sticky. So that's how we want it. It's just trying. See, it's just trying. Oh, sorry, I pressed the zoom button there. Doing one hand is not easy, but it's just trying to stick to me. See that? It's just at that level. It's just trying to stick to the pan, the container. If my language is a bit weird, it's because I've been in France for a long time, and I can't remember the right way to say things in English always. Now this is ready now. We don't want any more flour on this, because that was not sticking at all there for a moment, but just kneading it a bit and it's beginning to stick again. So now we will, I don't know if you're supposed to rest it for a minute, but I don't. Just putting some flour there so it doesn't stick to the... And now we're going to go to here, to our tray that we've got ready. It's a metal tray. You could use a stone one, would be even better, but I don't know what I don't know where my pizza stone has gone. Here it comes. Okay. There's my pizza dough. And what I do, is I just spread it out with my fingers. If you leave it too long, or if you get it too floury, it won't spread out, it'll spring back into shape. If it's shrinking back, it's because you've let it stand for too long, or there was too much flour in the mixture, it was too dry. And now we sprinkle a few fingerfuls of flour on the top, and don't brush whatever you do. Look how floppy this pastry is. You come over with it like this. So that flour was just so that it doesn't stick when we flip it over. You keep pressing it out. It's quite hard to do at an angle. It wants to fall down. And again, a sprinkle of flour. Flip it one more time. You can see how they do the throwing and the stretch. I'm not very good at that, so I just pressing with my fingers This is really, I'm doing a terrible job of this because the whole thing's at an angle here, and I'm trying to do it so that you can see what I'm doing. Need a little bit more flour. I don't normally put on flour at this point, but like I say, this is all of a pig's ear because it's all. Didn't know how to get the camera vertical over it, but I will pick up the camera in a minute and put it vertical over it so that you can see what I'm doing. You can get this really, really thin. Really thin. The thinner the better. You don't need much of a lip, almost nothing. This isn't how I do it normally. I'm normally doing it with all my hands like that, but because I've got this damn thing at an angle here, every time I press down it springs up and it's making that annoying clattering. And we don't want that anymore, do we? Okay, so again, I can't hold this. Let's just do it properly. See, well, if you people do want to watch me make a pizza, you're going to have to not be able to see it properly, I'm afraid. It's such a cock-up. This is so terrible. But this is probably what your first one will look like anyway, so it will make you feel better. Right, this dough, because I've spent so long on it, is now starting to spring back. It's starting to pull back into a ball. It won't let me spread it out anymore. So we just did that in time, really. Like I say, normally I do a much better job than that. See, it's absolute rubbish. Terrible, terrible. Look at this. That's the edge. But as you can see, that's quite a big pizza. Quite big. An ordinary dinner plate, it's too small for it. But I've got a really big one there. Okay, so that's taken a long time. The next thing we do is we take some oil. This is special pizza oil. And in fact, after the oil ran out, I've topped it up with cheap sunflower oil, but you still get the herby flavour. Pour it on there and then brush it around, only using the weight of the brush itself, no pressure. Just allow the weight of the wooden handle of the brush be the pressure. If you press on this, you're going to damage it. Okay, you don't need to go all the way to the edges. Quite nice if they end up a bit softer. So there, I've used quite a lot there, but that's okay. That's the oil. And now I've got here, this is a tin of tomatoes, half of that because I had another pizza the other day, and then I take a knife and fork and I just, as if I'm chopping it up for a baby, I just ka-chung, 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 and I just knife and fork the whole thing till there's almost all chopped up. But you can buy them pre-chopped. So I find half a tin of tomatoes is a bit too much sometimes. Depends how hungry you are. I haven't eaten yet today, so I'll probably be able to eat the whole half tin, to be honest. This is a very big pizza, so we can get away with it. This will be a lot to eat. Let me just push them around again, no pressure, just the weight and drag. If you push like that, you're going to make a hole in it, and we don't want that. Okay, all done with the same brush, that saves on washing up. And the next thing is grated cheese, fine grated cheese. You can use anything, you can use slices of mozzarella, and I like to do this properly, but stick difficult to do with one hand, so I'm going to shake out that anyway. We're not trying to get fully even coverage. If it's a little bit uneven, that adds to the variety. But what we are trying to get with this is roughly the way you want it to look. You want it to look like the tomato and the cheese are pretty much even Stevens with each other. You don't want either to dominate. Do you see what I mean? So you want the tomato and the cheese to look like they're kind of 50-50. I don't mean the actual quantity, I just mean the appearance of the pizza. And then that will be perfect. That goes in the oven now for about 12 minutes at 220. I think that's gas mark 8. So I don't think I've even been in for 10 minutes, but I'm having it like that. I like my pizza a bit chewy. I don't like it too hard. There we are. You have to be quite careful, keep it very flat and slide it very carefully off of the tray onto the plate, very flat. Otherwise, because I undercook it, I have it slightly undercooked, so the topping can slide around a bit, especially because of the way I do the oil there first. You can pour oil on now. If there's not enough, you can pour more oil on now, afterwards. And if you're using olive oil, then really it should go on afterwards anyway. See that base? It's quite crusty, but quite breakable in here. It's got a nice bit doughy almost in places, which is how I like it. All you need to do now is add your black pepper, perhaps a little spray of balsamic vinegar. I use the balsamic glaze. Or maybe a bit of fresh salad on top, bit of rocket, sometimes I have on top. This is really in lieu of olives. Black olives you might have arranged like that. And of course you can put any other toppings on that you want before it goes in the oven. That's a homemade pizza. You may or may not need salt added to it, because don't forget we added salt to the base. So if you like your salt, add a little salt as well. But don't forget the most important thing of all, to make you feel like you're in a restaurant. Good old black pepper. Bon appetit.